I'm going to lead into the sex episode with the Jar Jar Binks story. Not sure if this is true, but I heard that in the US,
What?
after Jar Jar Binks came out, there was a 6-foot inflatable Jar Jar Binks toy that had to be recalled because it came with various nooks and crannies, should we say, and it was being used inappropriately by young boys.
Wow.
Fact or fiction, I'm not sure, but
A Jar Jar Binks sex doll?
Yes.
Well, talking about recalls, I can't remember. I think it might be Lego or someone like that. There was or Play-Doh. Basically, there was this toy that kids could use where you get two different types of Play-Doh, like yellow and reds, and you put them both in a tube, and you put your fingers through two holes and you squeeze it, and it came out orange, and you could draw colours with it. But it actually had like a long bit like that, and then two kind of circle things, which made it look like a penis, and I had to be recalled. It was terrible. But this is the problem with the sex episode, the Innovation Ramble sex episode, is it's going to be really difficult for us to do this and not sound like A, like teenage boys, or B, like old men that shouldn't be discussing this subject. So we're on a tightrope.
We are.
Between those two things.
I think we should give it a go.
Let's crack on with the Innovation Ramble.
Hi, welcome to the Innovation Ramble.
Welcome,
our podcast where we pick a fresh topic every week, search out the innovations, and bring you the very best of what we found.
So last week we had the relationships episode.
We did.
Lots of interesting stuff there, and this is a natural carry-on. This is the sex episode. We're going to do dating and sex, but there's just literally so much innovation around sex. I think we could definitely do another episode. I'm sure we'll come back to it in a year's time. But as usual, we're in CSC's Champagne Bar. Behind me, you can see the champagne. This is a small tasting room. Thanks to the guys for accommodating us. Huge thanks to our partner, The Drum. We launched on The Drum's website yesterday. A massive 90 views of our video.
That's stellar compared to the regular numbers we were getting.
Well, quite. We're very, very grateful. We launched on iTunes. So please... Al, for those of you who don't know him, is a recent father to two twins, and when he comes here at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, he looks like death because he's been up 3 times. So the very least you can do is go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, and then just put a little review saying, well done Al for getting up in the morning. But please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. It'll make more people able to discover the show and put a massive smile on our face.
There we go, do it for the kids.
And also subscribe to the Drums channel, which is down here somewhere.
Yes, down at the bottom, subscribe. So as you mentioned, we're at St Pancras, CSC Champagne Bar, longest in Europe. If you hear any unusual noises, it'll be Eurostar arriving from Paris and Lyon.
I'm a bit confused about the longest bar thing. Do you ever judge a bar by its length? There's a really great long martini bar. It's weird that they say that.
Good point. It's probably just a bit of PR and marketing spin, but I think it is the longest in Europe. And certainly, if you're looking to get a table and you have to walk to the very end, it feels quite long.
But the point is, it's really nice and the staff are really lovely.
They are.
But that's about us. What's in it for you? We've got a bit of news. We've got history. We've got ethics. We've got science. We've got technology.
Lots of tech.
I've got apps. We've got a bit of insight and agenda.
Yeah, we'll finish this.
And we're going to talk about sex, with hopefully not embarrassing anyone. So should we kick off?
Let's do it.
Bit of news.
Yeah, let's launch.
So a couple in Florida were caught having sex on a beach recently.
Not the cocktail. They were actually. They were actually
having sex on the beach, and then people complained and said, can you stop having sex on the beach? And they're like, said, tell them to go away. And there are actually kids present. And then it went to court, and he's actually got 2.5 years in jail.
Really?
Yeah.
Just him?
Yeah, just him.
Wow.
I think she's probably got a talk show now or something. But
right, okay.
We'll get her on the show next week.
That kind of doesn't seem fair, and I think it's a subject that we're going to be covering quite a bit here, the kind of equality or lack thereof. So, completely at the opposite end of the spectrum, Pornhub, one of the world's largest
I don't know that website.
Porn sites, they're seeking 3.4 million euros in order to film a porno movie in space. It's called Sexploration.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's called Sexploration, and given that the Pornhub, I think it's something like 18 million viewers a year, and something crazy like in America every 30 minutes a new porn movie is made, it's no surprise that the industry is looking to push the boundaries and no doubt generate a bit of PR. Dr. Laura Berman, who has a fantastic title, she is the Assistant Clinical Professor of OB/GYN and Psychiatry at the Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine. That's at Dr. Laura Berman, very talented woman, very knowledgeable. Said she's a sex therapist as well, an author. She said that this endeavour is a testament to the boundarylessness of the human imagination.
Well, it's interesting, pornography, he says on camera, but I read recently that 40% of pornography depicts violence towards women. And if you look at the things that have sort of been outlawed in the last 100 years, like, I don't know, things like, blood sports, for example, or like, minimum wage or workers' rights, and actually supporting people at the kind of rough end of life. Actually, the majority of people who work in the sex industry are being sort of coerced and abused in a lot of ways. So I think we all sort of laugh about Pornhub as being this kind of hilarious thing, and different people, different times go look at it. But actually, there's a lot of like horrible stuff that happens on that platform, and I think what Pornhub are really trying to do is kind of smooth that over. Like we're putting someone doing a sex film in space, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people who are in that industry would rather be doing something else if they could. So I think it's a conflicting subject, sex.
Yeah, it is. You think, well, we're going to cover it a bit later, robots and sexual dysfunction. There's a real kind of male bias. However, actually, it's women who are buying most of the sex toys that are out there, and actually they're driving a lot of the kind of sex tech revolution.
So before we get into our favourite sex toys that we found, it's really interesting to look at like the anthropology, like what is going on with sex, and the kind of role of sex has kind of really changed, because sex used to be about like reproducing. Families would often have like 14, 15, 16 kids because a lot of those wouldn't survive, so it was kind of necessary. But now with modern medicine, there's no need for that. And then there was the role where sex was something that the kind of woman provided for the man, but now there's much more sexual equality. And we're at this point now in relationships where there's actually quite a large tension, where you've got the need for excitement and sex and adventure, and you have that drive, but at the same time you want stability and comfort and warmth, and those two things are really kind of opposed to each other. There's a real tension there. And the lovely quote that I found was that we're designed to reproduce, not to be happy. Happiness is something we really have to strive for, because we have this real balance between wanting to procreate but also wanting to have that stability and confidence. And so when you look neurologically, this is my GCSE neuroscience bit that I do every week now, is when you have sex with someone, your brain produces dopamine, like tons of dopamine, and what that does is it kind of makes you want to be affectionate and cuddly. So after you have like amazing sex, then often it can happen that you want to cuddle and caress, and then that produces the drug that we mention every week, which is oxytocin. And when that gets produced, then you start to get those feelings of connectivity and intimacy and wanting to connect with someone. So actually, casual sex, the idea of just having a one-off thing with someone is quite a weird one, because it produces the dopamine that makes you want to cuddle someone. You cuddle someone, then it produces oxytocin, and then you start to form that connection and that bond. So there's this real kind of chemical trap laid out. So if you don't want to have sex with someone, then if you don't want to get together with someone, then you probably shouldn't cuddle them afterwards, because there's this kind of chemical triptych kind of waiting for you there to hook you in. So that's what's going on inside your head, which I think is fascinating.
In fact, in a 2009 study, 1,006 women were asked why they were having sex. Now you've explained beautifully what drives us, but what people say is sometimes a little bit different. And the feedback was there were 237 different reasons that these women gave for why they were having sex, and these included I wanted to give him an STD.
What?
I felt sorry for him. Another was to punish myself. And the weirdest one, maybe, I lost a bet. I think that's a fair point that you make. Unless you want to end up in a relationship or start a relationship with somebody, you probably shouldn't be having sex with in the first place. I'm not sure losing a bet is a smart way to get stuck in. And as you say, at the end of the day, sex is really truly pleasurable because it transcends our aloneness, and we crave to be near and close to others.
Yeah, and we've always kind of found different ways to do it, and specifically innovating around not having kids, so family planning. So I had a bit of look at condom history, which is just fascinating. So flexible rubber was developed like late 1800s.
Yep.
And obviously the condom was created. And actually there's something we didn't discuss before, but have you seen they developed a condom now that changes colour depending on whether you have an STD or not?
Oh, no,
so
I didn't see
you
that.
pop it on,
Yeah.
and then if it changes colour, then,
Okay.
then both
Early
parties
warning.
both parties has the option to query themselves. But before that innovation, they in the Middle Ages they used to encourage women to wear weasel testicles around the insides of their thighs as a contraceptive method.
That would certainly put me off.
They're classic, or animal intestines, but in the Japanese used to use a tortoise shell. The mind boggles. I'm not really 100% sure how that works.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, it isn't just men driving, sex technology, and women are the biggest consumers of sex toys. A vibrator that's been around for ages actually constitutes 18% of all purchases, and if rumours to believed, Cleopatra was one of the very early sex innovators. She, according to the rumour, took a gourd and filled it with angry bees in an attempt to get herself stimulated.
Were they angry before they were inside?
I don't know, good question, but that's something that you don't want. You wouldn't want to be making a mistake there, would you? The word dildo actually comes from the Italian diletto, which means delight, and arguably it's the most durable invention, the oldest tool. Only fire, weapons, clothing and beads seem to have been around longer, which kind of makes sense.
Beads?
Yes.
Beads.
Quite recently, a 6 centimetre tall statue was found carved from mammoth tusks, and it had supersized. It was of the female form, and it had supersized breasts and genitals, and been around for 35,000 years, predating even religion. So we've been making sex toys, for a very long time. Fast forward to just a few decades ago, in 1984 was when the famous Rabbit debuted. Made more friendly by that vibrator was made more friendly because it had a rabbit on it, and it was a good luck. It was developed, I think, in the Far East in Japan. The rabbit's seen as a good luck animal and a bit more friendly. And apparently when Ann Summers launched online, they sold 1 million rabbits in just 12 months. So vibrators, dildos, certainly there's been a lot of development.
And it's this gender thing that I think is so interesting. But if you look at a rabbit, like the original one is like bright pink, and goes, and it's such a male thing designed for a female. Whereas if you look at sort of contemporary vibrators, stuff, it's much more sleek and personal and feminine. So I think there's always this kind of male, this is how girls want it, or this is what women want. When in reality, and then the same with the contraceptive pill, right? There's no reason why it was developed for women before it was for men, but it's just that male drive to keep women in their place, which
well, it's happened
hopefully moving away from that.
It's happened in pornography as well. So in the last couple of decades, more and more female directors have come on board. They're making content that by women for women, rather than the kind of totally male dominated point of view.
We're so unbelievably politically correct in the show, aren't we?
Well, it's just the truth, It's nice to it's been fun doing the research.
Well, not massively fun in terms of this. So I was looking at innovations around sex crime, and so there is essentially a service in the States around campuses. I think it was 1 in 5 students are said to have some form of sexual attack during their time at the university, which is crazy, and that's including men as well. But I don't know the figures, but I think a lot of rape isn't reported for a variety of very personal reasons. And so what the colleges wanted to do was to create like a service where you could, not necessarily like come forward, but actually still report it. So the service is actually called Callisto, and what you can do is describe the attack, the incident, but not actually press charges, which you may think is not that much use, but that gives the college data.
Yeah.
So if everyone reported a sex crime, then you'd start to understand like where the potential dangers are. And part of the form is you say, could the college have done anything to prevent this happening? So actually, it's created data for universities to make themselves a safer place for slightly more vulnerable people at vulnerable times. And then if they want to come forward, eventually they can. But also linked to, it's a great website actually, sexualhealthinnovations.org.
Yeah.
They have quite a few products. One is called So They Can Know, which is like more lighthearted. So if you've had sex with someone and you realise you've picked something up that you're not very happy about, you can send them anonymous messages, anonymous emails saying, I think you need to go and check yourself out. Here's the link to the sexual health centre.
Yeah.
But, you don't have to make that awkward call or whatever that some people have to do sometimes.
Well, I read a few years ago that young men were choosing to finish relationships with their partners, over text message, which I always thought was a little bit cowardly. But as it feels like is the same way if you're having to anonymously let somebody you've actually had sex with, that maybe they should go and get themselves checked out. But at least they know they should be heading down to the STD clinic. And on the same vibe in terms of helping people. So Dr. Laura Berman, who had a view on the porn movie in space, she is very clear about the fact that she thinks sex technology development is a positive thing. She thinks there's a whole population of people who are socially, emotionally and physically isolated, and technology has actually become a godsend because it's helping them create a social support system. They find it difficult to find a mate. They think that they're unattractive. They're struggling with social issues, with disabilities, and sex tech is kind of opening up whole new avenues for them in terms of falling in love either with other people or with virtual entities.
Well, we talked about that last week on the relationships episode, didn't we? About like the invisible girlfriend and boyfriend app, where
absolutely.
you could create this fictional relationship with someone.
And you mentioned about men and women being out of sync, and actually it wasn't up until the mid to late 80s that sexual dysfunction was even tested on women. The Viagra pill's been around since 1988, and only now we're starting to see the kind of equivalence of women coming on board, which is just plain wrong given they bear our children, they go through menopause. There should be more drugs and more support available for those women.
Well, I mean, if you extrapolate even further, coming back to transhumanism, the transhumanists believe that the science will be available for men to have implanted wombs and actually grow kids themselves. So would you be up for that?
Probably give anything a go once. Was that Mae West quote?
Give anything a go.
We'll leave it to later. But transhumanist, very good. Really kind of final point in this section. A lot of transgender people are by definition transhumans, and lots of people are very excited about the US ruling on gay marriage and opening up society. But transhumanist technology and science, it's believed, is starting to kind of complement the LGBT movement and help push forward progress in the area and push back social oppression and closed-mindedness. So it feels like transhumanism and rights for individuals who don't see themselves in a particular box but are they're much less pinned down. It feels like the rights for the broad range of people is going to be much better.
And one umbrella for all those different types of people could be swingers.
Could be.
I've been investigating swingers and swinging this week, looking at podcasts. So I typed in sex into the search in iTunes, and there is quite a few sex podcasts, but one called Swingercast.
Yeah.
Where they have shows like, Swinging 101, Push in the Bush, and BBC's. God knows what that's about. But it's these people, there's photos on the website, and they're swingers talking about how to do it, how to have a sex party. It's pretty innovative approach to publicising your sex life. So I don't know. I thought it was a bit weird and a bit creepy, but I thought it was quite an interesting innovation that people would want to share their tips on how to have a very open relationship.
Well, I guess that's the beauty of the internet, isn't it? That there's information for just about anybody, any kind of taste. And if your taste was robotic dolls, then you can be catered for as well. It seems actually, but in all this research, a couple of things that come through are where sex in the future is going to be amazing because technology is going to help us have better orgasms, be more intimate, and one of the other big themes that comes through is dolls and sex dolls, and I think it's this male bias. Because actually, they're despite the fact that you can pay $50,000 for a super intelligent, learning, robotic doll to have sex with, the numbers that are being shipped aren't anywhere near the numbers that you have for kind of more standard sex toys, dildos and vibrators for women. But a survey last year found that 20% of people would choose to get it on with an Android. 20%. I don't mean the phone. Yeah. And 20%. Like I said, you can spend up to $50,000 on a site at realdolls.com.
So there's the thing I saw at Future Fest. One guy built a sex doll that as soon as the moment's over, it starts to read out the football scores.
Okay, you'll give me the URL after we've finished. There's a suggestion that in Japan, where child birth rates aren't normalising, they're still below par, that actually the relationships that men are forging with virtual beings and robots isn't helping, because they're not being encouraged to seek out other human beings. It's a bit easier, a bit safer, and so big suggestions that might be a contributing factor. Robotic prostitution is thereby coming more likely, and it might feel like you can't pick up a disease from a robot, but I'm pretty sure that as things progress, there'll be other kinds of diseases. There'll be kind of more traditional computer viruses you'll be able to pick up, and from us playing with various different bits of tech from our smartwatches and stuff, I'm sure that the same will be true. That when you did get that, there'll just be no apps for it, and there'll be rubbish to start with.
Well, it's interesting you talk about technology sort of destroying traditional methods of copulation or relationships. And coming back to the porn thing, that I listened to a podcast a while ago about porn addiction and what is happening with kids and sort of particularly young men is that they're watching porn from a very early age. And when you first come across porn, it's taboo, right? So you get that dopamine hit, but there's also a bit of adrenaline because part of you sort of knows something's kind of wrong. But what happens is that with pornography, you normalise to it. So you get a dopamine hit from a certain video. Yeah. Next time you come back to that video, the dopamine hit isn't quite as high. So you go into the next video and the next video because you're always chasing that dopamine rush that you get when you watch pornography. Yeah. And this is happening to kids, right? So so they start watching it early. By the time they get to 15, 16, 17, when they would normally be having their first sexual experience, because they're hooked on this kind of consistent cycle of dopamine, when they actually get into the situation with a sexual partner for the first time, they actually can't get aroused because that experience doesn't give anything like the dopamine levels that the porn experiences did. So a lot of those kids are actually thinking that they're homosexual. Okay. And so then they're going back to Pornhub or wherever else to watch gay videos because that's the only place that they can get the dopamine hit and that feeling of taboo. Yeah. So it's like crazy, really crazy. And so it's a different way of looking at pornography, but that's a physiological thing that's happening. That's
a scary place. I'd heard that actually, young men actually were making demands on their sexual partners in line with what they'd seen as well, because they'd become desensitized, and so that was the norm now. Scary, which is scary. Not as scary as ending up in the hospital, as what happened to one elderly German. I think he was on holiday or living in Ibiza, and he was using a next generation sex toy, a metal contraption into which he put a lot of his body, and he then couldn't get it out. I think in the hospital the police were called, the fire engine came, and the crews that had to cut him out went through at least 2 fresh blades on an angle grinder, and he was sedated towards the end. So what had started out for him as hopefully a really interesting evening ended up with some kind of hardcore toys that he probably wasn't expecting.
Well, I'm glad you've lightened the tone a bit, because I want to talk about a bit of artwork, and this is called Tender, which is a play on Tinder. So if you can imagine this bit of artwork, there was like a metal pole like this that would revolve, and they attached to that pole a bit of stake, right? So the thing would revolve around this, and then flap on the bottom, and then it'd have a phone there, and it would swipe right. So it would roll over, swipe right, roll over, swipe right. Called Tender, and the artist said, what's the quote? He's putting, "Tender is the easy way to connect with new and interesting meat around you," and went viral. I think it's absolutely hilarious.
Very funny.
But an interesting point to make about Tinder are men just swiping right, just in the vain hope of making a connection with someone. But there's been quite a few robots that have just swiped right for people.
Sure.
But more clever than that. You think? I mean, I've never been on Tinder. Even for the purpose of this podcast, I think it would be unwise for us to download it and start experimenting.
My brother-in-law suggested I should be doing that. I was telling him about my research. He said, well, you should have guest accounts. And I said, the idea of getting rumbled,
no, absolutely not. However, there is an interesting play on Tinder called Tab. Okay. So you think Tinder's fairly easy, just swipe right, left, whatever. But this Tab is a Chrome extension. So every time you open a new tab on Chrome, it just pulls your face of a potential partner, and you can either click right or left on it. So every time you do it, so it's even easier. It's just baked into your everyday tab opening on your browser, which is kind of a bit ridiculous.
Yeah. Is that safe for work?
Yeah, I can imagine you're on a shared screen in the office. Yeah, exactly. Do a presentation, you open a new tab, and there's Sandra from Basingstoke.
Yeah, slightly worrying. All leading towards us hopefully having better sex, and this is one of the things that came through in my research, as we're looking into how is human sexuality being affected by technology. Sex has always been linked to technical innovation. I discovered a fact that apparently prostitutes were early users of voicemail. When voice recorders and answer phones came about. Did you find that out? Well, yeah, apparently that was the case in the 50s. I guess they wanted to make sure that they weren't, losing custom, and so they were an early adopter of this technology. And I've mentioned already, I keep reading that we're going to be having all this mind-blowing sex. However, there are some worrying facts. Last year, a survey by Durex found that 33% of people felt their digital lives were having a negative impact on the most intimate aspects of their relationship. And then there was that Facebook stat that I think we both came across, that were 5% of people horrifyingly admitted they'd used Facebook during intercourse.
God. But you can have your relatives on there, and I just can't. What?
Yeah. So are we going to be having better sex? I know you've been a big fan of, or potentially even coined the term, Voyerism 2.0. Well, this could be Voyerism 3.0. Thanks to Google Glasses, there's an app called Glance that would allow you to experience sex from the view of the other person. Yeah, so you can actually get it on while watching yourself. Which is like the ultimate narcissism to me.
Why on earth would you want to see your own sex face whilst
I don't know.
All wear glass, all wear Google Glass.
Well, exactly at the same time. I can't even. I'm struggling to get over selfie sticks at the moment. So even the concept of that is just awful.
So even more cringe than that. Well, no, nothing's more cringe than that. But there's spreadsheets. So this is an app that you fling on the bed, get it on with your partner, and once you've had that moment with them, you pop open the app and you do a review of your thrust rate, your thrust per minute, your lifetime score of thrust. You look at your stats, and you can unlock achievements like duration, regularity, thrust rate. And the videos of this couple sat in bed looking at in my experience, getting an app out after the moment isn't the most romantic thing you could do. But potentially a couple of data nerds might quite enjoy that.
Well, maybe. I found quite a few things on the quantified sex. A survey published last month suggested that a quarter of millennials, those born between 77 and 95, they're willing to wear some kind of wearable technology during sex, which does raise a bit of a question for me, because Joe Bursell of the Pen Test Partners says that he and his firm believe that connected sex toys are at risk from hackers. So not just a security risk, but they could be easily hacked, allowing people to intercept communications and even take control of them, which I'm not sure would be great. If you and following on from spreadsheets, I found a couple as well. One called Nipple. That you had to upload the data yourself, so it wasn't like spreadsheets where the app just recorded. You had to upload the data yourself, which I thought was a bit of a concern. And also, they weren't really selling themselves that well. When you arrive at the website, they say straight away, well, right now in the world there are 3.5 billion oral sex acts going on, which is not a kind of like mental image you want to have. Something like 3.5 billion, their calculation, 120 women. That's
not like half the population of the world. That's total nonsense.
Maybe that was 3.5 million.
Well, if you think that there's a baby born every second, or probably 2 every second now, then how many people are actually having sex?
That's a fair point.
So actually, the 3.5 billion. Anyway, good luck to them.
So Apple Health, apparently as well, there's a new tab under their Apple Health tracker called the sexual activity tab, and you can go and log the date and time of sex on your Apple device and whether or not it was protected. But I think my favourite in this whole area is something called Lovely, and it's one that I might even consider having a go with. It's
not too much information.
It's a wearable that it's brilliant because it functions as both a kind of sex aid but also a kind of wearable device. So it's stimulating for both partners, but it's also recording like movement.
Why did you say you're going to try this out? Like
I haven't.
Right, okay.
It's something I thought it was.
What does it actually do?
So it's a ring that the guy wears, and it's.
You've made this really awkward right in the last 2 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
But anyway, no, that's fine. So
somebody wears it, and it's also providing access to like 120 different sexual positions.
Providing access?
Well, through the app you can see what you've covered off, what you haven't covered off, heart rate, how many calories you've burned. And making tips.
That sounds.
I thought of the broad range of everything. It was probably the one that I thought had the most potential.
Well, it's weird, isn't it? And so having doing these episodes around, we had like fear and happiness and relationships, and we always researching like the psychology behind these things, and that's what I'm starting to realise now from doing the Ramble, is that there's just those in-baked human neuroscience things happening that, with sex, I mean, it's so primal, it's such a huge part of our life that a lot of this stuff is really just scratching at the surface. I mean, is spreadsheets really going to change anything for anyone? And once again, I think that actually the innovation is really for the people who don't have mainstream exposure to that thing, so if it's less able people or geographically displaced people or whatever it is, that innovation is generally most beneficial for people who were kind of wanting at the beginning, not like us who are able and connected and all that kind of stuff, because then you just get into these silly, stupid innovations that will probably never catch on. That's my rant. The innovation rant. The innovation rant.
Yeah, all these things are opening up avenues for individuals who might be struggling in a particular way. It's something new to try, to maybe try and get over that hump, past that issue, and make a connection or improve in some way.
So that was it. That was a really strange episode. So we've had relationships, we've had Innovation Ramble on fear, we've had on happiness. So we're gonna go mega straight next week, aren't we? Yes. We do money.
Let's get commercial.
Like money, the innovations of money,
like finance.
Your face is dropping. So it's a departure. But I think it's going to be an interesting week's worth of research for that. So,
Definitely.
shout outs, thanks again to Circes, thanks to the drum, thanks
Sam
to
Scott
Dave,
for his,
Cameron, Gordon, Sam, for filming this and getting us our 80 views on YouTube. I think 100 next week. Come on,
let's hope so. We're more traffic through the drum, more video watches, and hopefully more ratings and reviews on iTunes. Please give us a 5-star.
Please
tell us what you think.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Thanks to Matt Kempton for our logo design. James Harrison. Well, we've got we're doing another photo shoot next week, aren't we?
Yeah,
the summer shoot.
The summer, the spring summer collection.
So thanks to Harrison for that. Lucky Elephant for our tunes.
Cracking
Please
music.
Go and download both of their brilliant albums.
Christina
for
marketing,
Light,
more
support,
research,
and
awesome, thank you.
Generally being brilliant. Should we finish with a couple of quotes?
Let's do that. I've got a couple of classics. I think
I'm for two. Tucking in with two. Go on.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for Mae West.
Okay.
Sex is emotion in motion.
Nice. Well, I didn't mention this before, but one of the researchers said that sex is more of a language than a behaviour. That it's entirely expressive of who you are. So my quote. We hope that there'll be some people in the marketing advertising industry watching this. Cannes is the annual hoopla of all things great in advertising and marketing, and essentially there's a big conference centre with a red carpet outside, and a couple were photographed having sex on this carpet for 20 minutes, and a big sign over the head said, looking forward to seeing you in the morning. And there's lots of funny tweets about it. It kind of went viral, and Nikhil Taneja said, quote, "Make love, not ads," which I thought was brilliant.
Very smart.
Do you one more quote? Do you want to pop one in there?
Yeah, I'm going to end with something a little bit unusual that focuses on the difference between good sex and bad sex.
Okay,
and
let's have it.
You might tut away, because this is a quote from Billy Joel. There's nothing better than good sex, but bad sex, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is better than bad sex.
Wow, that is a strong way to finish the episode. Till next time.
Bye.